Hello there, and welcome to the Sleepy History Channel. Tonight we travel back, not centuries, not millennia, but deep into the breathing dark of geological time, to a continent that remembers when the world was whole, to a tree that holds 10 million years of quiet in its bark, and to a small, round creature asleep in the highest fork of a silver-grey gum, dreaming in a way that only the very ancient know how to dream. The air before dawn in the eucalyptus forest is cool and faintly medicinal, the way old things smell when the world goes still around them. Somewhere above you, if you could see through the pale pre-light, a koala is curled into herself like a slow thought, her grey fur the exact colour of the branch she rests upon, her eyes closed, her breathing so shallow and unhurried that she seems less like an animal and more like something the tree itself exhaled long ago and then forgot. Have you ever wondered what it means to sleep for 18 hours in a day, to let the world turn and hum and shift while you remain perfectly, gloriously still? Have you ever considered what the gum tree might remember? The slow drift of continents, the vanishing of inland seas, the rise and retreat of forests older than anything we have a name for. And have you ever asked yourself how far back stillness truly goes, whether rest itself is one of the oldest things alive? If you enjoy these gentle journeys, I invite you to like, subscribe, or share a thought below. It helps others find their way here too, one sleepy soul at a time. But for now, simply settle in, because this story begins not with the koala, and not even with the eucalyptus, but with the continent itself. A vast ancient raft of stone drifting slowly through deep time. Once, long before there were koalas or gum trees or any green thing recognizable to your eye, Australia was part of Gondwana, a supercontinent so enormous it cradled what would one day become Antarctica, South America, Africa, and India, all within its slow embrace. The land was warm and wet in those days, draped in forests of a kind that no longer exist anywhere on Earth, and the animals moving through those forests were the distant ancestors of creatures you might still recognize if you looked carefully enough. Over millions of years, the land that would become Australia began to separate, to drift northward with the patient, irresistible momentum of tectonic plates, carrying its cargo of life into increasing isolation. And that isolation, that long, quiet separateness, is the reason the koala exists at all. It is the reason marsupials flourished here when placental mammals came to dominate nearly everywhere else. The continent became a kind of slow dream, sealed off from the rest of the world, evolving in its own unhurried direction, and the eucalyptus forest grew up around that, dreaming like a soft, fragrant thought that took 10 million years to finish. Close your eyes for a moment and feel the ground beneath you, solid, unmoving, reassuring in the way that only something ancient can be. It does not feel like it is going anywhere. It never does. And yet the ground beneath your feet has been on an extraordinary journey, one so slow and so vast that no creature alive has ever witnessed more than the tiniest sliver of it. A journey measured not in lifetimes or centuries, but in tens of millions of years of quiet, patient drift. The koala sleeping above you in the moonlit eucalyptus canopy is the inheritor of that journey. Every soft breath it draws, every small involuntary twitch of its rounded ears, is a living echo of a world so different from this one that you would barely recognize it if you could somehow step back and see it whole. Let yourself drift toward that world now. There is no hurry. Time, in this telling, is the one thing we have in absolute abundance. Roughly 180 million years ago, the surface of the Earth wore a very different face, where you now know separate continents Africa, South America, Antarctica, Australia, the Indian subcontinent, the scattered islands of New Zealand, there was instead a single enormous landmass, and geologists call it Gondwana. Say the word slowly to yourself if you like. Gondwana. It carries a kind of gravity, a rumble in the syllables that feels appropriate for something so immense. This supercontinent stretched from the equator nearly to the pole, a colossal raft of rock hosting climates ranging from tropical forest to cool temperate woodland, all of it joined, all of it sharing the same deep basement of ancient stone. The ancestors of the koala lived then, though you would not have looked at them and thought of koalas at all. They were small, these early relatives, small and warm-blooded in the way that the very first mammals were, creatures that scurried low and moved carefully, animals whose world was defined by the enormous reptiles that shared the land with them. Imagine a creature not much larger than your thumb, fur-covered and bright-eyed, picking its cautious way through the undergrowth of a Gondwanan forest in the deep Jurassic night. Its descendants, over more time than the mind comfortably holds, would eventually become the sleepy grey creature resting in the branches above you. But that future was unimaginably far away. For now, there was only the vast continent, the darkness of an ancient forest, and the slow, inaudible creaking of a world about to begin pulling itself apart. The first rifts were not dramatic. Nothing in geology is dramatic on human timescales. There were no great explosions, no sudden chasms yawning open overnight. Instead, deep beneath the surface, the movement of heat within the earth began to tug at the rock from below, the way warmth rising through thick oil will eventually pull the surface into slow, sluggish motion. The crust stretched, thinned, and very gradually cracked, and the cracks, over millions of years, widened into valleys, and the valleys, over millions more years, flooded with the sea. This is how continents part, not with violence, but with an almost unbearable patience, as if the earth itself is content to wait as long as it takes. Antarctica and Australia began their long farewell to the rest of Gondwana first as part of this broader fragmentation. The whole vast supercontinent reorganizing itself in stages, Africa and South America parting to the west, while the eastern arm, the piece that would become the world's driest and most biologically isolated inhabited continent, began to peel away to the south and east for a long time. And we are speaking of spans of time that dwarf everything written, everything spoken, every human memory of any kind. Antarctica and Australia remained joined to each other, even as the rest of Gondwana drifted away. They were like two passengers who stay on the same slow train long after everyone else has got off, traveling together across the broadening ocean toward a destination neither of them could know. The seas that flooded between the separating pieces of Gondwana were shallow at first, warm and teeming with life. Broad, shallow waterways that cut across what had been continuous land. For the small mammals living along those early shores, the widening water would eventually have been impassable, though the change came far too slowly for any individual animal to notice it happening at all. One generation lived, breathed, foraged, slept, and passed away, and the sea was no wider than it had been before. Another generation came, and another, and another, and still the change was imperceptible. The water widened by perhaps a centimeter per year, the pace at which your fingernails grow, and over millions of years that quiet, fingernail pace widening became an ocean. Australia and Antarctica finally parted company somewhere around 35 million years ago, The exact timing is still something scientists refine as new evidence surfaces from ancient seafloors and deep drill cores. But the broad truth is clear. The two land masses separated. Antarctica slid southward toward the pole, where it would eventually be entombed in ice, and Australia began the long, slow northward drift that continues to this very day. Australia moves northward at roughly the same rate your fingernails grow, about 7 centimeters per year. It has been doing this for tens of millions of years, and it is doing it right now, even as the koala sleeps, even as you breathe. There is something quietly astonishing in that fact if you let it settle into you. The idea that the ground beneath every eucalyptus forest, beneath every sleeping koala, beneath every red desert and every coral fringed shore is moving right now, in this very moment, on its long northward journey. The isolation that followed this parting of the ways was one of the most consequential events in the history of life on this planet, though consequential is perhaps too urgent a word for something so gradual and so serene. What happened simply was that Australia became an ark, a vast, slow ark with no captain and no destination, drifting across the widening ocean, carrying its cargo of life in complete separation from the rest of the world. The mammals that had been present on the Australian portion of Gondwana before the final separation were now cut off from their relatives elsewhere. They could not leave, and nothing new could easily arrive. And so they evolved, alone and undisturbed, along pathways that the rest of the world's mammals never took. Most of the world's mammals, during this same long stretch of time, were developing the placental reproductive strategy, carrying young inside the womb for extended periods, nourishing them through a placenta until they were relatively well developed at birth. But on the drifting Australian ark, a different path was taken. The marsupial strategy, bearing tiny, almost embryonic young and completing their development in a pouch, persisted and flourished in the absence of the competitive pressures that might have replaced it elsewhere. Koalas, kangaroos, wombats, possums, the extraordinary platypus and echidna, all of them are the living fruits of that isolation, creatures shaped by tens of millions of years of evolutionary solitude on a slow-moving continent that kept the rest of the world at a distance. When you look at a koala, you are looking at the product of a biological experiment conducted over geological time, an experiment whose results could only have unfolded on a landmass that drifted alone across a widening sea. There is a particular quality to deep time that is worth dwelling in, here in the soft quiet of the eucalyptus night, because it is so different from the kind of time we usually inhabit. Human time is urgent, full of deadlines and seasons, and the felt pressure of hours passing. But geological time has no urgency in it at all. 1 million years in geological time is roughly what a single afternoon is in a human life, a unit too small to notice, a rounding error in the broader calculation. The continents have been moving for 4.5 billion years. Australia has been drifting northward for 35 million of them, and in all that time, nothing that lived on its surface has ever perceived the motion. Every koala ancestor that ever gripped a branch, every marsupial that ever raised its head to sniff the night air, did so on a platform that was, from its perspective, perfectly still. The stillness was the truth of its experience. The motion was the truth of geological reality. Both things were completely true at once. Perhaps that is what the koala knows that we have forgotten. The small warm body in the branches above you is not hurrying anywhere. It is not anxious about the continent moving beneath it or the deep past that shaped it. It simply rests in the tree, breathing slowly, held by the branch, by the tree, by the earth that has been carrying its kind for longer than imagination easily reaches. The eucalyptus forest around you is itself part of this same story. Those trees, so deeply associated with Australia, evolved here in part because of the isolation, because the drifting continent created conditions that selected for the fire-adapted, oil-rich, nutrient-poor foliage that koalas eventually came to depend on entirely. The tree and the animal shaped each other across millions of years of shared solitude on the same slow arc. There is a kind of rest in this, if you let yourself feel it. The ground beneath you is ancient and patient, and has carried everything that has ever lived upon it with absolute unhurried steadiness. The koala resting in the branches is the inheritor of 180 million years of quiet persistence, a lineage that survived the breakup of a supercontinent, the flooding of ancient seas, and the long northward drift of an entire landmass. It is sleeping now. You might let yourself follow it there, down into the slow, deep stillness that geological time offers, where nothing hurries, nothing ends too soon, and the ground beneath everything holds firm and patient and warm. Somewhere beneath you, if you were to press your palm flat against the earth and hold it there long enough, you might sense something. A deep, almost imperceptible patience, the kind that belongs not to minutes or hours, but to ages so vast they have no edges you can find. That same patience lives inside every koala sleeping in the canopy above you now, tucked into the crook of a eucalyptus branch, its breath slow and even, its small rounded body rising and falling with a rhythm that has been practiced in one form or another for longer than you might easily imagine. Tonight, as this creature sleeps, we are going to travel back together through one of the most quietly extraordinary chapters in the story of life on this planet, the age of marsupials, and the moment a single biological innovation changed the rules of survival forever. There is no hurry. The koala is not going anywhere. Neither are you. And the story, like all the best ones, is worth taking slowly. To understand how the marsupial came to exist at all, you have to go back even further than the slow drift of Gondwana's broken pieces. You have to go back roughly 80 million years to a world that would feel genuinely alien to you. A world still warm and lush across latitudes we would now consider impossibly northern or southern. A world where the great extinction that would eventually silence the non-avian dinosaurs had not yet arrived, and where the earliest ancestors of all the marsupials alive today were already moving quietly through the leaf litter, small and unassuming, soft-bodied and sharp-eyed, living out their lives in the margins of a world dominated by creatures far larger than themselves. These earliest marsupials were not impressive by any obvious measure. They were, by most accounts, modest little animals, roughly the size of a mouse or a small rat, their bones so fine and their bodies so perishable that the fossil record of them is fragmentary, a few teeth here, a jaw fragment there, the kind of evidence that paleontologists spend entire careers piecing together with extraordinary care. And yet those small, soft creatures carried within them something that would, over the tens of millions of years to come, prove to be one of the most successful reproductive strategies the animal kingdom has ever produced. They carried the blueprint of the pouch. Now, the pouch did not appear all at once, fully formed, as though evolution had made a single decisive choice. Evolution does not work that way. It works slowly, incrementally, each tiny variation either helping or hindering the survival of the individual who carries it, the useful ones persisting and multiplying across generations, while the less useful ones quietly fade. But the essential principle that would eventually give rise to the marsupial pouch was this. Rather than keeping a developing young inside the womb for a long, metabolically expensive gestation, the marsupial ancestor began giving birth to young at an extraordinarily early stage of development. Tiny, translucent, barely formed, more potential than animal, and then nourishing that young outside the body in a protected space, attached to a nipple and drinking milk, while its organs and senses and limbs slowly completed their development in the open air rather than inside the womb. This is the thing that rewrote the rules. A tiny joey, born at a stage so early, it would be almost invisible to you if you held it in your palm, climbing through its mother's fur by instinct alone, guided by warmth and scent, finding its way to the pouch and latching on with the determination that is, when you think about it, one of the most quietly astonishing feats in all of nature. It cannot see, it cannot hear in any meaningful way, and yet it arrives every time. There is something in that image that invites a long, slow breath. The idea that life carries within it instructions so deep, so thoroughly written into the fabric of the animal, that they operate even before the animal is, by any ordinary definition, ready for the world. The pouch, then, is not simply a pocket. It is an external womb, a continuation of the mother's body in a different form, a shelter and a nourishment station, and a school all at once, the place where the young marsupial learns, over weeks and months, to become itself. And this arrangement, unusual as it sounds when you describe it plainly, turned out to be remarkably effective, not just adequate, but genuinely successful across an enormous range of environments and ecological roles. But to understand how the ancestors of the sleeping koala above you came to occupy the particular branch of the marsupial family tree they now inhabit, you need to follow them on a journey. A journey that crossed continents, that used land bridges now long vanished beneath cold southern seas, and that took place so gradually no individual animal would have known it was happening at all. At the time, those early marsupials were beginning to diversify. The southern supercontinent of Gondwana was still in the process of its long, slow dissolution. South America remained connected to Antarctica, and Antarctica, still a land of forests rather than ice in those ancient days, remained connected to what would become Australia. This chain of connected landmasses formed a highway of sorts, a pathway along which animals could spread, following food and warmth and the gentle pressure of population, generation by generation, without ever crossing open ocean. The marsupials used this highway. Fossil evidence suggests that marsupial lineages moved southward through South America, crossed into Antarctica when it was still habitable, and eventually reached the landmass that would become Australia, carrying with them the pouch and the blueprint and the patience of 80 million years of slow refinement. Then the connections broke. Antarctica drifted south and froze. South America drifted north and, much later, would be reunited with North America, bringing placental mammals south with it, and eventually reducing the South American marsupials to only a handful of surviving lineages. Among them, the opossums that still move through warm forests today. But Australia had already separated. It was alone, and on that isolated arc, the marsupials had the entire continent to themselves. No large placental competitors, no predators that had evolved alongside them, just open ecological space and deep time and the slow, patient work of adaptation. What followed was something biologists call adaptive radiation. A branching, a diversifying, a spreading into every available role and environment. The marsupials that reached Australia began to fill the continent's ecological possibilities with extraordinary variety. Some grew large and developed the long hind legs and powerful tails of grazers, moving across open grasslands that would not exist for millions of years yet, but whose precursors were already beginning to emerge. Some remained small and burrowing, digging into the earth for shelter and tubers, developing the compact, powerful bodies of what we would one day call wombats. Some took to the trees, evolving long fingers and prehensile tails and the light, quick movements of animals that lived their lives among branches, the ancestors of the possums. Some remained insectivorous, their long snouts and quick reflexes suited to hunting in the leaf litter, becoming the bandicoots and their relatives. And somewhere in this great branching, this slow arborescence of lineages spreading across deep time, there was a divergence that would lead eventually to the koala. The exact moment of that divergence is not something we can point to precisely. Evolution does not announce its most significant turns with any particular fanfare, but the fossil record tells us that the lineage which would produce the koala began to separate from its closest relatives somewhere in the range of 25 to 30 million years ago, developing over that long span the extraordinary suite of adaptations that allows a modern koala to live almost entirely on eucalyptus leaves so fibrous and so full of toxic compounds that almost no other animal on Earth can subsist on them. That specialization did not happen quickly. It happened the way everything in this story happens, slowly, incrementally, across generations beyond counting, each small change tested against the reality of survival, the useful ones persisting, the rest fading quietly away. And here is the reflective beat that the sleeping koala above you carries without knowing it. Every cell in its body, every fold of its pouch, every specialized enzyme in its oversized liver that allows it to detoxify the compounds in eucalyptus leaves, every one of the adaptations that makes it precisely what it is. All of it is the accumulated record of this journey, the ancient dispersal through Gondwana, the highway of connected southern continents, the isolation of Australia, and the great radiation of marsupial life that followed, the slow divergence of lineages that would become wombats and possums and bandicoots and, eventually, the koala. All of that history is written into the biology of the animal sleeping above you now, as surely as your own deep history is written into your body. In the structure of your ear, in the way your embryo briefly grows, gill arches before they become something else, in the ancient rhythms of your heartbeat. You and the koala share a common ancestor if you go back far enough, and you both carry the memory of the ancient world in your bodies, though neither of you would know how to read it without help. So as you settle a little deeper into your own comfortable stillness, and as the koala in the eucalyptus above you sleeps on, dreaming whatever slow and gentle dreams a koala dreams, it is enough simply to hold the knowledge lightly that this small, round, improbable creature is not just an animal in a tree. It is a living archive, a soft, breathing record of 80 million years of survival, adaptation, and the quiet, patient ingenuity of life, finding its way through time. The pouch rewrote the rules, and the koala, sleeping, carries the proof of that rewriting in every slow and unhurried breath. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine the smell of rain on dry bark, that sharp, medicinal sweetness drifting up through warm air, the kind of scent that seems to slow everything down just by arriving. That smell, the unmistakable breath of eucalyptus, is the thread that runs through everything you are about to hear. It is ancient and it is patient, and it belongs to a story that took tens of millions of years to arrive at the still, drowsy creature you picture now, wedged softly in the fork of a tree, eyes half closed, barely moving as the world turns quietly around it. To understand how the koala became the koala, you have to go back further than the koala itself, back into a time when its family was only just beginning, feeling its way toward a future that neither it nor anything else could have predicted. The fossil record, that long and fragmentary library written in stone, holds the earliest chapters of this story, and they are stranger and richer than you might expect. The family to which the koala belongs is called Phascolarctidae, and its oldest confirmed members appear in Australian rocks dating to roughly 25 million years ago. That number is worth sitting with for a moment. 25 million years. At that point, human beings were not yet a rumor in the history of life. The continents were still settling into arrangements that would eventually look familiar, and Australia was a warmer, wetter place, draped in forests far more diverse than the eucalyptus-dominated landscapes that define so much of the continent today. Into those forests, the earliest phascolarctids moved as browsers, animals that ate from a wide menu, sampling the leaves and shoots of many different plant species, not yet committed to any single food source, not yet the specialist the lineage would eventually produce. Among the creatures that have been recovered from this deep chapter of koala history, two names appear with particular frequency in the scientific literature. Litakoala is one of them, a small animal known from fossil material found in sites across Australia, living somewhere between 15 and 25 million years ago, its teeth and jaw bones hinting at a diet that was already beginning to shift toward tougher, more fibrous plant material, though not yet locked onto eucalyptus alone. Nemeokoala is another, similarly ancient, similarly modest in size compared to the living koala you know today. Its remains recovered from deposits that speak of open forests and changing climates, environments that were themselves in the middle of a slow transformation. What these early relatives tell paleontologists is that the koala lineage did not arrive at its present form all at once. There was no single moment when an ancestor decided, so to speak, to become a eucalyptus specialist. Instead, there was a long and gradual narrowing, a slow closing of options across millions of years, driven by the shifting ecology of the Australian continent and the competitive pressures of a world filling up with other browsing and grazing animals. The early phascolarctids were generalists in a world that would, over immense stretches of time, reward a different strategy. As Australia dried through the Miocene and into the Pleistocene, epochs that stretched across millions of years with the unhurried patience of deep time, the continent's forests changed character. Rainforest retreated. Eucalyptus, a genus that had been present in Australia for a very long time, spread and diversified, coming to dominate enormous areas of the landscape. For most animals, this was a problem. Eucalyptus leaves are not good food, at least not in any straightforward sense. They are tough and fibrous, low in protein, and laced with chemical compounds, phenolics and terpenes among them, that function as defenses against being eaten. Many of these compounds are genuinely toxic to a wide range of animals. A mammal that tried to subsist on eucalyptus leaves without any special adaptations would find itself poorly nourished and potentially poisoned by its own diet. And yet, here is the paradox that makes the koala so remarkable. As eucalyptus came to dominate Australia, the koala lineage did not retreat from it. Instead, over generation after generation, across a timescale that makes any human span of years feel impossibly brief, the koala's ancestors moved toward it. The gut of these animals became, slowly and across deep time, a detoxification system, a living laboratory for neutralizing the very compounds that kept other creatures away. The liver of a modern koala processes eucalyptus toxins with an efficiency that still draws the attention of researchers. Specialized microbes in the gut help break down compounds that would overwhelm a less adapted digestive system. The kidneys are unusually efficient at concentrating waste, helping to manage the metabolic cost of processing such chemically complex food. None of this was designed. None of it was aimed at any outcome. It emerged across millions of years of selection. Animals that happened to tolerate eucalyptus a little better surviving to pass that tolerance forward, and so on, and so on, until the tolerance became a specialization, and the specialization became a way of life that no other mammal on Earth shares in quite the same way. Body size shifted through this long journey as well. The earliest fasculatids were small, noticeably smaller than the koalas alive today. As the lineage progressed through time, some branches grew larger, and the modern koala, while not enormous, represents a significant increase over those ancient relatives. Size matters in a diet like this. A larger body has a longer digestive tract, more time to process difficult food, a better ratio of gut volume to body surface area for extracting what little nutrition eucalyptus offers. Getting bigger was, in part, a way of wringing more from a food source that gives back very little. It is a solution written in bone and flesh across millions of years, and it is visible in the fossil record if you know how to read it. There is something in all of this that invites a particular kind of quiet reflection, and you might let it settle over you now as your breathing slows and your body grows heavier against whatever is holding you. The koala's famous stillness, that deep, almost legendary immobility, the long hours of sleep that seem to define the animal as much as any physical feature, is not laziness. It is not indifference. It is arithmetic. Eucalyptus leaves yield so little usable energy that the koala's body has had to become extraordinarily conservative in how it spends what it takes in. 18 hours of sleep each day is not excess. It is the cost of the bargain the lineage struck across millions of years. Every movement costs energy. Every unnecessary action is a withdrawal from an account that is never very full. So the koala holds still. It wedges itself into a fork high in a tree, locks its powerful limbs around the branch, and it rests. Not because it has nothing to do, but because rest is what its food budget allows. When you see a koala motionless in the canopy, you are seeing the end result of a negotiation between an animal and its food source that has been running for tens of millions of years. The eucalyptus gives almost nothing back. The koala has built an entire existence around surviving on almost nothing. And in that stillness, there is something that feels, from the outside, remarkably like peace. You carry your own version of this, perhaps, in those moments when you finally stop, when the day is done and the lights are low, and the particular demands of being awake and moving through the world can, at last, be set aside. The koala does not choose its stillness in the way you might choose to rest, but the quality of that rest, the depth of it, the way the body surrenders completely to the branch and the dark and the quiet. That part, perhaps you understand. The ancient relatives of the koala, those small and generalist browsers moving through forests that no longer exist, could not have known what the lineage would become. Little koala, picking through the vegetation of a Miocene forest, had no way of sensing the long road ahead. The narrowing of the diet, the deepening of the specialization, the slow transformation of a gut into a detoxification system, the growing size of the body, the settling of those iconic sleepy habits into the bones and behavior of a creature that would one day be known and recognized across the entire world. All of that lay in the future, written nowhere, promised to no one. And yet here the koala is, arrived. 25 million years in the making, give or take, shaped by forces it never understood and pressures it never consciously met, carrying in its quiet body the accumulated solutions of an uncountable number of generations. The leaves it eats tonight are the same leaves its ancestors slowly, across deep time, learned to tolerate. The stillness it rests in is the same stillness those ancestors were gradually selected toward. The sleep it is sinking into, even now, somewhere in the fork of a tree in a dark Australian forest, is the ancient, inherited, earned sleep of a specialist, an animal that made its bargain with the world a very long time ago and has been honoring the terms of that bargain with extraordinary patience ever since. Let that thought accompany you as your own eyes grow heavy. The koala's sleep is not hurried. It has nowhere to be and no urgency driving it toward morning. It rests because resting is what the long story of its lineage has made possible. And you too can rest now, carried gently on the current of deep time, held in the quiet that belongs to all sleeping things. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine the smell of eucalyptus oil on warm air. That sharp, clean, almost medicinal sweetness that seems to come from somewhere older than memory, older than any name you have ever given to a tree. That scent is ancient in a way that is difficult to hold in the mind, and yet tonight, as the koala rests in the fork of its chosen tree, that smell drifts down through the leaves and settles around everything like a quiet blessing, like the exhale of a world that has been breathing for a very long time. The eucalyptus is not simply the tree the koala sleeps in. It is, in a real and measurable sense, the tree that made the koala possible. The tree that shaped the land, altered the soil, changed the chemistry of an entire continent, and waited, patient as stone, for an animal slow and quiet enough to love it properly. And the story of how the eucalyptus came to reign across the southern world is one of the longest, strangest, most unhurried stories the planet has ever told. Botanists and paleontologists, poring over ancient sediment cores and the pressed ghosts of leaves preserved in rock, believe the eucalyptus genus traces its origins back to Gondwana, that vast southern supercontinent whose slow, silent breakup we followed in an earlier part of this journey. Fossil pollen grains, microscopic and impossibly delicate, tell us that something recognizably eucalyptus-like was already present in the landscape at least 50 million years ago. Some researchers push that estimate back further still, suggesting that the lineage may have been present closer to 60 or even 65 million years ago, which would place its earliest ancestors in the long twilight that followed the great extinction at the end of the Cretaceous. Think about what that means in the quietest possible way. 50 million years ago, the continent that would become Australia had only recently separated from the last remnants of Gondwana. Marsupials were still finding their footing on a land that was wetter, greener, more densely forested than anything you would recognize today. The ancestors of the koala were millions of years from existing, and yet something that carried within its cells the deep instructions for eucalyptusness was already alive, already growing, already releasing that particular oil into air that no human lung had ever breathed and would not for tens of millions of years to come. The fossil record for eucalyptus is fragmentary, as fossil records so often are, because flowers and leaves and the soft tissues of trees decay quickly, leaving only their pollen and the occasional preserved fragment of wood or leaf to tell the story. But the pollen does not lie. It drifts down through the ages, settles into lake sediments, and waits with extraordinary patience to be found and read. And what the pollen says is this: the eucalyptus was here. It was here before the great drying. It was here before the fires. It was here before the mammals that would one day depend on it had taken anything like their modern shape. It was here, and it was already beginning the long, slow experiment of learning how to survive on a continent that was changing beneath it. Because Australia did change. Over those tens of millions of years, as the continent drifted northward and the vast inland sea retreated and the climate cooled and dried, the lush rainforest that had once covered much of the land began to thin and fragment and pull back toward the coasts. The interior grew drier. The soils, ancient and weathered by hundreds of millions of years of rain and wind, became poorer in nutrients, less able to sustain the dense moisture-loving forests of earlier eras. And fire came. Or rather, fire, which had always been a visitor, became a resident, a constant presence in the landscape, a force that would shape everything it touched. And this is where the eucalyptus story becomes something genuinely remarkable, something that deserves to be held in the mind with the same quiet wonder you might give to a piece of music that resolves exactly as it should. The eucalyptus did not merely survive the fires, it learned to use them. It developed, over millions of years of slow evolutionary negotiation, a suite of adaptations so perfectly matched to a fire-prone landscape that you could almost believe the tree had planned it, had looked out across the burning continent and decided, with great deliberate calm, what it needed to become. Consider the lignotuber. Below the ground, at the base of many eucalyptus trees, there grows a dense woody swelling packed with dormant buds and stored starches. A vault of potential, a living archive of everything the tree needs to begin again. When fire sweeps through and strips the canopy bare, when the bark chars and the leaves curl and fall, the lignotuber survives. And from it, within weeks or months of the fire passing, new shoots push upward through the ash with a speed and vigor that seems almost eager, almost joyful, as though the tree has been waiting for exactly this moment. The fire does not destroy the eucalyptus. In many ways, the fire is what the eucalyptus has been preparing for all along. And then consider the leaves themselves, those long, leathery, oil-rich blades that hang in such a way that they present their edges rather than their faces to the midday sun, reducing water loss while still photosynthesizing through the long, dry seasons. Those oils, the same oils that produce that clean, sharp scent you imagined at the beginning of this section, are volatile and highly flammable. When fire approaches, the fine mist of oil vapor above a stand of eucalyptus can ignite almost before the flame arrives, creating intense, fast-moving fires that burn hot and quick and pass through quickly, scorching competing vegetation while leaving the fire-adapted eucalyptus to recover. It is a strategy that borders on the audacious. The tree essentially arms the fire, makes it fiercer and faster, and then relies on its own deep adaptations to survive what it has helped to create. The bark peels readily too, long ribbons and strips falling to the ground where they curl and dry and become exactly the kind of fine, fast-burning fuel that carries a low fire rapidly across the ground without allowing it to linger long enough to penetrate deep into the wood. Hot and fast and moving. The eucalyptus and the Australian fire regime have shaped each other over millions of years into something like partners in a long, slow, mutually beneficial negotiation. And the result of all this evolutionary patience and ingenuity, diversification on a scale that is almost difficult to comprehend. From those ancient Gondwanan ancestors the eucalyptus genus has expanded into something extraordinary. Today, there are more than 700 recognized species, and some estimates push closer to 800 when subspecies and varieties are included. 700 species, each one shaped by millions of years of adaptation to a specific niche, a specific soil type, a specific rainfall regime, a specific relationship with fire and wind, and the particular quality of light that falls on a particular slope in a particular season. There are species that grow as tall as mountain ash, the tallest flowering plants on Earth, their canopies reaching over 100 meters into cool, temperate air. There are species that grow as low, multi-stemmed shrubs called mallees, sprawling across dry, sandy soils with nothing above ground much taller than a person, but connected below the surface by enormous lignotubers that can be thousands of years old. There are snow gums that twist and lean on alpine ridges, their bark stripped by wind and cold into patterns of cream and grey and pale green, persisting through conditions that would kill most trees outright. There are species adapted to waterlogged soils, to coastal salt spray, to the red sands of the near-desert interior. 700 ways of being a eucalyptus, 700 answers to the question of how to survive and flourish on the oldest, driest, flattest, most nutrient-poor continent on Earth. And as the eucalyptus diversified and spread, it did not merely occupy the landscape, it transformed it. The roots of eucalyptus trees reach deep, sometimes extraordinarily deep, drawing water from aquifers far below the surface, accessing moisture that shallower-rooted plants cannot reach. This makes them remarkably drought-tolerant, able to maintain their canopies through dry seasons that would stress most other large trees. And it also means that a eucalyptus forest changes the hydrology of the land it grows on, pulling water upward and releasing it through transpiration in ways that can influence local rainfall patterns and soil moisture over large areas. The leaves, when they fall, decompose slowly. The oils that make them so flammable also make them resistant to the bacteria and fungi that would normally break down plant material quickly, returning nutrients to the soil. Instead, eucalyptus leaf litter accumulates on the forest floor in deep papery layers that acidify the soil beneath them, creating conditions that suit the eucalyptus and its particular community of associated plants, but that can be inhospitable to species adapted to richer, more neutral soils. Over millions of years, the eucalyptus has, in a very real sense, made Australia more Australian, more acidic, more fire-prone, more deeply shaped by the particular chemistry and biology of a single remarkable genus. The land beneath a eucalyptus forest is not the same land it would have been without the eucalyptus. It has been altered, patiently, incrementally, over geological time, by the simple fact of the tree growing there and living and dropping its leaves and burning and regrowing and living again. And this is the thought that perhaps deserves the most space as this section draws toward its close. Not a fact exactly, but a recognition, a moment of quiet connection between the deep past and the present breath you are drawing now. The tree that the koala holds tonight, the particular tree, in the particular place where it grows, with its particular chemistry of oils and its particular community of soil organisms in the earth around its roots, is not merely an individual. It is the current expression of a lineage that stretches back 50 million years or more. The cells of that tree carry instructions that were already ancient when the first koala ancestors were beginning their long specialization toward eucalyptus eating. The relationship between the koala and the eucalyptus is not simply one animal and one tree. It is two ancient lineages that have been part of the same story for so long that it is almost impossible to imagine one without the other. The tree shaped the land that shaped the animal that shaped its own relationship to the tree. And the whole long, slow conversation has been going on in the same quiet way for longer than the human mind can easily hold. Tonight, in the dark and the cool and the soft smell of eucalyptus oil drifting on the air, the koala rests in the arms of something that has been holding things like itself for tens of millions of years. The tree does not know this, of course. The koala does not know this. But the knowing does not need to be in them for the truth of it to be real, for the weight and the wonder of it to settle over you, gently, like the first edge of sleep. Beneath your feet, if you were standing in the red and ochre reaches of Western Australia right now, the ground would be older than almost anything else you could touch anywhere on this planet. Not older in the way that a forest feels old, or a mountain feels old, but older in a way that settles into the body slowly, the way a deep breath settles, the way sleep settles. A patience so enormous it becomes indistinguishable from stillness. The rock there, the ancient cratons of the Pilbara and the Yilgarn, began forming more than 3 billion years ago. 3 billion. Let that number rest somewhere behind your eyes for a moment, without trying to hold it all at once. When those rocks were cooling from their original molten state, the Earth itself was barely a quarter of the way through its total existence. There were no forests, there were no animals, there were no plants, there were no shells, no fins, no eyes, no songs. The most complex life on Earth at that time was microbial. Single cells drifting in shallow, warm seas, doing nothing that would look like life to you, and yet beginning, slowly, the long work of making the world that would one day hold koalas and eucalyptus trees and everything else that breathes. And all that time, the rock simply waited. It has been waiting ever since. The Pilbara Craton in the northwest of Australia contains some of the most ancient exposed rock surfaces on the surface of this planet. Granites and greenstone belts that crystallized when the atmosphere itself was chemically unrecognizable, rich in methane and carbon dioxide, empty of the oxygen you are breathing softly right now. The Yilgarn Craton to the south is similarly ancient, a great slab of deep time pressed up against the sky, with almost nothing in the way. Both of these structures have endured longer than complex life has existed anywhere. They are not remnants of something that was once spectacular and has now faded. They are the original material, barely changed, sitting quietly under the southern sun, as they always have. Australia is one of the flattest continents on Earth, and that flatness is not accidental. It is the result of time performing its gentlest and most patient work, which is the work of erosion. Where other continents still wear dramatic mountain ranges thrown up by the restless motion of tectonic plates, ranges that tear the horizon and gather snow and cast long shadows, Australia has spent billions of years settling. Its ancient mountains have been worn away so gradually, so steadily, so unhurriedly, that what remain are not peaks, but something closer to memories of peaks. Gentle ridges, long, low swells in the land that catch the afternoon light and glow amber and rust and warm brown. The process that produced this extraordinary flatness is the same process that makes a stone smooth at the bottom of a river. Patient contact, year after year, century after century, until all the sharpness is gone, until what remains is a kind of softness, a roundness, a quietude. If you imagine a mountain the way a mountain looks when it is young, all thrust and angle and dramatic verticality, and then you imagine time, deep time, geological time, billions of years of wind and water and slow chemical weathering. you begin to approach the landscape of much of Australia. The land has been breathing out for so long that it has reached an almost meditative stillness. It does not hurry. It does not assert itself. It simply lies there, warm and ancient and profoundly patient. And then there is the Great Dividing Range. By Australian standards, the Great Dividing Range is young. It began forming roughly 300 million years ago, which, when you hold it beside the 3 billion year age of the Pilbara and Yilgarn cratons, feels almost recent. A new thought in an ancient mind, a late addition to a very long story. The range runs along the eastern edge of the continent, from far north Queensland all the way down through New South Wales and Victoria. A backbone of elevated land that shapes the weather, gathers the rain from the Pacific, and sends water flowing both eastward toward the coast and westward into the great interior. 300 million years is still a number that resists ordinary imagination. At that time, the continents were arranged differently, and Australia was part of the supercontinent that geologists call Gondwana. What is now Antarctica was our neighbour. What is now India was nearby. The world looked nothing like the world you know, and yet the rock that was being folded and lifted to form the Great Dividing Range was already doing the work it would continue doing, gathering moisture, creating rainfall, building the conditions that would, eventually, allow eucalyptus forests to establish themselves along the eastern seaboard of Australia in the ecological abundance that koalas now depend upon entirely. The range is not dramatically tall by global standards. Its highest peaks are modest, rounded, softened by that same patient erosion that has flattened so much of the rest of the continent. But its height is sufficient to interrupt the easterly weather systems rolling in from the Pacific, sufficient to wring the moisture from those air masses and let it fall as rain on the slopes and valleys below, sufficient to create the rivers that water the forests, that anchor the eucalyptus trees that feed the koalas that are sleeping somewhere in those forests. At this very moment, under the eastern part of the continent, hidden from the surface but present in a way that changes everything, lies one of the most remarkable water systems on Earth. The Great Artesian Basin is a vast underground reservoir, one of the largest in the world, extending beneath Queensland, New South Wales, South Australia, and the Northern Territory. It is not a lake. It is not a cavern filled with standing water. It is something far more subtle and far more patient. It is water that has soaked down through permeable sandstone layers and is moving with extraordinary slowness through the rock itself. Some of the water currently held within the Great Artesian Basin fell as rain more than 1 million years ago. It has been travelling molecule by molecule through the stone for longer than anatomically modern humans have existed on Earth, longer than any cave painting, longer than any human civilization, any spoken language, any story ever told around any fire. The rain that became this water fell on a landscape that was already ancient, was absorbed into the ground, began its imperceptibly slow journey through sandstone formed from sediments laid down in earlier geological eras, and has been moving gently, quietly ever since. In places where the basin pressure forces this ancient water upward to the surface, at natural springs, or at bores drilled by pastoralists over the last century and a half, that water arrives carrying the coolness of the deep rock with it, emerging into sunlight for the first time in geological ages. It is water that has been patient in the dark for longer than we can properly conceive of patience. The whole of Australia, when you start to read it this way, reveals itself as a story told in rock and water and time. The ancient cratons holding their 3 billion year composure in the west. the slow-worn ridges and plains, where mountains once stood and now have simply rested into the earth. The Great Dividing Range, young enough to still have edges that catch the rain, old enough to have given the eastern forests centuries beyond counting in which to establish themselves. The vast hidden water moving through sandstone at the pace that stone allows, all of it patient, all of it unhurried, all of it operating on timescales so far beyond the ordinary human sense of duration that the only appropriate response is a kind of quiet wonder, the kind that does not demand anything of you except your presence and your willingness to let the scale of it wash through you gently, the way warmth moves through a room at the end of a long day. And somewhere on the surface of all this ancient stone, on the ridges and the slopes, in the valleys where the rainfall gathers and the rivers begin, the eucalyptus trees are growing, as they have been growing for tens of millions of years, their roots pressing down through the thin soil toward the rock beneath, their leaves silvering in the breeze, their bark peeling away in long, pale strips to catch the dappled afternoon light. And in those trees, in the fork of a branch, or in the sheltered hollow where two limbs meet, a koala is sleeping. It breathes slowly. Its small hands grip the branch with a relaxed certainty, the grip of an animal that has done this for so long, across so many generations, that the behavior is written into its body as deeply as anything can be written. Below it, through the thin layer of soil that covers it like a blanket, through the roots of the tree it holds, through the bedrock that anchors the whole forest, the stone is as old as almost anything alive has ever rested upon. Older than animals, older than plants, older than anything that breathes or moves or sleeps. And yet here, on the surface of all that patient stone, there is a small warm creature curled in the canopy, breathing in the particular sweetness of the eucalyptus night air, its heartbeat slow and steady, its body perfectly at ease. The rock has been waiting for billions of years. The koala arrived recently, in geological terms, but the stone beneath it does not notice the distinction. It simply holds, as it has always held, everything that rests upon it, with a patience that has no edge, no urgency, no end. Close your eyes for a moment and feel the ground beneath you, solid, patient, ancient beyond ordinary reckoning. That ground has a story so deep and so unhurried that it makes the present moment feel like the softest of whispers. About 100 million years ago, give or take a few million years in either direction, the land that would one day become Australia occupied a very different place on the surface of this turning world. It sat far to the south, pressed close against the polar circle, cradled in latitudes where the sun itself would vanish for months at a time, leaving only a long breathing darkness over forests that had never heard a single eucalyptus leaf stir in the wind. Those trees had not arrived yet. The gum trees were still tens of millions of years in the future, still waiting in the slow, patient chemistry of evolution. What grew instead were conifers and ferns and flowering plants just beginning their great experiment, their roots reaching into soil that was cold, sometimes frozen at the edges, touched by the particular stillness of a polar winter that lasted and lasted and lasted. Breathe that in. 100 million years of slow transformation, layer upon layer, pressed into the very earth that now holds gum tree roots and koala claws and the quiet weight of sleeping things. This was the Cretaceous period, and Australia as it existed then was not yet an island. It was still in the final chapters of its long marriage to the supercontinent we call Gondwana. Though the separation was already underway, the continental plates drifting with the agonizing patience of deep time, pulling the land southward and eventually away, Antarctica lay just beyond, connected still, and the cold that flowed between them was real and profound. Ice did not cover everything. This was a greenhouse world, by some measures, warmer overall than today, and yet the polar darkness was inescapable. The tilt of the Earth was the same then as it is now, and so the seasons came, and in those southern latitudes, the winter darkness descended like a long, slow exhale that simply did not end. For weeks and then months, the sun stayed below the horizon, and the forest breathed in that darkness, and the creatures living within them had to find their own ways to endure. Among those creatures were the dinosaurs, and here is something that might settle gently into your mind as you rest. Dinosaurs did not only live in warm tropical lowlands. Some of them lived here, at the edge of the polar circle, in the cold and the dark, and they were extraordinary. Fossils found in the state of Victoria, in southeastern Australia, have given us a window into this world, and what looks back through that window is genuinely remarkable. One of the most evocative of these polar dinosaurs is a small ornithopod called Lineage, named with quiet tenderness after the daughter of the paleontologists who found her traces in the rock. Lineage was not a large creature. She was perhaps the size of a small dog, a bipedal plant-eater moving through the polar forest on quick, light feet. But what the fossil record suggests about her eyes is something worth dwelling on in the soft dark behind your own closed eyelids. Her eyes were enormous, disproportionately large relative to her skull, and the space in her brain dedicated to processing vision appears to have been similarly expanded. This is a shape that makes sense only in one context: darkness. Lineage's great eyes were almost certainly an adaptation for seeing through the long polar nights, for navigating the months of near-total darkness when the forest floor was lit only by starlight and whatever faint glow crept beneath the absent sun. She was a creature built for the dark, tuned to it, surviving inside it. There is something deeply calming about that image. A small animal, unhurried, moving through an ancient polar forest in the long night, her wide eyes gathering every photon of available light, her small feet finding purchase on the cold fern-covered ground. She was not afraid of the dark, she was at home in it. Other dinosaurs moved through this same Cretaceous world in what is now Victoria and the surrounding regions. Fossils from sites along the coast, eroded out of sea cliffs by the patient work of waves, have revealed a community of animals adapted to the cold and the seasonal light. There were hypsilophodontids and other small ornithopods, and there may have been larger predators as well, though the evidence grows sparser as the animals grow larger and rarer. What the fossil sites tell us, collectively, is that this was a functioning polar ecosystem, not a marginal one, not a place where life barely clung on, but a world with its own rhythms and its own residents who had learned to live within its particular conditions over thousands of generations. These dinosaurs did not migrate south for the summer and flee north for the winter, or at least not all of them did. Some stayed. Some spent the dark months in that forest, breathing slowly, moving carefully, enduring. Now let your attention drift, if it wishes, from the forest to the water. Because while polar forests covered much of what is now southeastern Australia, the interior of the continent, the vast central regions that today are red desert and dry scrubland, and the occasional salt lake glittering under a fierce sun. That interior was submerged. The Eromanga Sea was an ancient inland sea, an epicontinental sea spreading across much of central Australia during the Cretaceous period, connecting at various times to the ocean to the north and perhaps to other marine bodies to the south. It was a warm, shallow sea for the most part, its waters full of life. Ammonites spiraling through the water column. Fish in their countless varieties, turtles, and the great marine reptiles that make the imagination go quiet and still. Pleistocene moved through the Eromanga Sea. These were not dinosaurs but their contemporaries, air-breathing reptiles that had returned to the water over many millions of years, developing long necks or compact bodies depending on the group, paddles where their ancestors had legs, a life spent gliding through shallow inland waters, hunting fish and cephalopods and whatever else the sea provided. Fossils of marine reptiles have been found in Queensland and surrounding regions, in rocks that were once the seafloor of the Eromanga Sea, and they are extraordinary things. Long-necked, paddle-finned, belonging to a world so remote that it takes a gentle effort of imagination to hold it in mind at all. The Eromanga Sea was not always present and did not persist throughout the entire Cretaceous. It rose and fell with changes in sea level and continental movement, appearing and retreating over millions of years, reshaping the interior of the continent in ways that left their traces in the sedimentary rock that still sits beneath the Australian outback. When you picture the red centre of Australia today, the dry heat, the spinifex, the silence, you might also allow yourself to picture, layered beneath all of that, the ghost of a sea, the memory of water, the faint impression of a plesiosaur gliding through warm, shallow depths above what is now dry ground. That layering is one of the gifts deep time offers, if you accept it slowly. And beneath the dinosaurs and beneath the inland sea, in the understory of the polar forests, and in the margins of the coastlines, there were smaller creatures, much smaller. Creatures that, in the sweep of 100 million years of subsequent history, would prove to be among the most consequential inhabitants of this land. These were the early mammals, or near mammals, the warm-blooded, fur-bearing, small-bodied animals that had been evolving alongside the dinosaurs for tens of millions of years already, occupying the niches the larger reptiles left open, surviving by being small and quick and largely nocturnal. They were, in ways that are both literal and poetic, the ancestors of the marsupial lineage, not the direct ancestors of koalas. That particular branch of the mammalian tree was still many millions of years from its full flowering, but ancestors of the broader group, the warm-blooded small things that would eventually, after the long reckoning that ended the Cretaceous, inherit an emptied world and fill it slowly with new forms. In the polar forests of Cretaceous Australia, these small mammals moved in the dark beneath the feet of Linosaura and whatever predators shared that cold world. They were insectivores perhaps, or omnivores, eating whatever the forest margins provided. They were quick and cautious and largely invisible in the fossil record because small, fragile bones are harder to preserve than the dense, heavy bones of large dinosaurs. But they were there. The chemistry of their small, warm bodies was already running in the direction that would eventually, over unimaginable spans of time, produce the sleepy, eucalyptus-scented, round-eared animal you may be thinking of right now as your own breathing grows slower and more even. Here is the reflective beat, the quiet place where all these facts come to rest together. The ground beneath a gum tree, any gum tree, anywhere in Australia, carries within it the memory of all these things. It was once a polar forest floor, cold and dark for months of every year, crossed by small ornithopods with enormous eyes. It was once, in its central regions, a sea floor, pressed down by warm, shallow water, traced by the shadows of plesiosaurs. It was once a marginal habitat where small, warm-blooded things moved cautiously through underbrush, avoiding larger animals whose descendants would one day be only bones in stone. The koala's ancestors were among those careful small things, navigating a world full of creatures that are now entirely gone, surviving the darkness and the cold and the long years by being small enough to hide and warm enough to endure. And the koala itself, sleeping now in a fork of a gum tree with its chin tucked down and its grey fur absorbing the warmth of a sun that once hid below the horizon for months at a time. The koala is a kind of continuation of that ancient patience, not unchanged, not the same creature, but connected across the vast distance of 100 million years by an unbroken thread of survival, of small-bodied endurance, of finding the right tree and the right posture, and simply resting while the world around you shifts and changes and eventually grows quiet again. Everything the koala rests on was once something else entirely, and one day it will be something else again. But right now, in this moment, it is a gum tree in Australia, and there is a sleepy animal in its branches, and the ground beneath holds all of this history in patient silence, the way deep time always holds its stories, quietly, without urgency, waiting for someone to lie still long enough to feel it. There is a particular quality to the air just before dawn, when the world has not yet remembered that it is morning, and everything holds itself very still in the cool and the dark, waiting for something it cannot name. 66 million years ago, the world held itself in exactly that way, though the stillness that came was not the comfortable stillness of pre-dawn. It was the stillness of a door closing, slowly at first, and then all at once, and then with a finality that would echo across millions of years in the shape of every creature that came after. You do not need to imagine it as catastrophe, though catastrophe it was. You can instead imagine it the way you might imagine a great library falling quiet at the end of the day, the rustling of pages ceasing one by one, the lights going out in room after room, until only the hush remains and the dust settles slowly through the darkened air. That is perhaps closer to how it felt across the long weeks and months that followed. A quieting, a dimming, a world learning to breathe in a completely different way. The event itself arrived from outside. A visitor from the cold reaches between the planets. A piece of ancient rock and ice perhaps 12 kilometers across, crossing the distance between stars in a journey that had lasted millions of years before it met the shallow tropical sea at what is now the coast of Mexico. The collision released energy so vast that the numbers lose their meaning and become instead a kind of poetry. Forces that reshaped coastlines, that sent walls of water across entire ocean basins, that lit the sky and then, in the weeks and months that followed, extinguished it. Not in fire, but in dust, in ash, in a veil of particulate matter so thick and so high in the atmosphere that sunlight struggled to reach the surface of the earth, and the world beneath that veil grew cold and dim and quiet in a way it had not been cold and dim and quiet for a very long time. The forests, which had been growing for tens of millions of years into great cathedral canopies of cycads and ferns, and the earliest flowering plants, went still. Photosynthesis slowed. The base of every food chain, which had always been the patient transformation of sunlight into leaf and root and stem, faltered in the dimness, and the animals that depended on those plants and the animals that depended on those animals began the long process of ceasing. The great dinosaurs, the ones whose footsteps had shaken the ground of Australia during those Cretaceous winters you visited in the last section, did not vanish in a single moment. They dwindled. Species by species, population by population. The giants that had shaped the world for 160 million years became quieter and fewer and finally absent. If you had been standing somewhere in the southern forests at the end of that time, you would not have heard a single dramatic ending. You would have heard, instead, a gradual diminishment. The calls growing fewer, the tracks in the mud becoming less frequent, the sense of a great and ancient presence slowly withdrawing from the world, until one morning you walked through an entire forest and realized, in the way you realize a sound has stopped only after the silence has settled, that the giants were gone. In Australia, this process had its own particular texture. The continent had been drifting southward for millions of years by the time the impact occurred, still loosely connected to the supercontinent fragments around it, but already developing the isolation that would eventually make it one of the most biologically distinct places on Earth. The southern position meant that Australia experienced the Great Extinction through a slightly different filter than the rest of the world. The cold that swept across the planet in the aftermath found Australia already accustomed to seasonal darkness in its polar regions, already shaped by the austral rhythms that differed from the equatorial belt, where life had sometimes been most dense. Some lineages that survived in Australia did not survive elsewhere. Some gaps that opened in the southern ecosystems were filled by different inheritors than the gaps that opened in the north. Extinction is never a single story told the same way in every place. It is instead 1,000 local stories, each one shaped by the particular landscape and climate and collection of survivors that happened to be present in that specific corner of the world when the door swung shut. And in Australia, the survivors included a remarkable collection of small marsupials and the earliest representatives of other mammal lineages that would, over the tens of millions of years to follow, diversify into forms that exist nowhere else on Earth. The aftermath of the Great Extinction is a story that unfolds slowly, the way all the best stories do, across timescales that resist easy comprehension. The dust settled over months and then years. The sunlight returned, and into the silence that the dinosaurs had left behind. A silence that represented not just their absence, but the absence of the entire ecological architecture they had supported and shaped. Life began the extraordinary work of filling empty space. This is one of the patterns that runs through the deep history of life on Earth, and it is both humbling and quietly wonderful. Extinction and diversification are bound together. Every great extinction has been followed, after the appropriate geological pause, by a great flowering. Life, encountering empty ecological space, finds ways to fill it. Mammals had been present throughout the age of dinosaurs, small and mostly nocturnal, and occupying the careful margins of a world dominated by larger and more powerful creatures. They had been, in a sense, practicing patience, practicing the art of finding food in the small hours, practicing the physiological innovations, warm blood, complex teeth, live birth or egg-laying with extended parental care, that would prove so useful once the world changed around them. In Australia, the marsupials were among the inheritors of the New World. With the pressure of competition from the dinosaurian giants suddenly lifted, with ecological roles of all sizes and shapes suddenly available, marsupial lineages began the process of radiation, the biological word for spreading outward into new forms and new ways of living, the way a drop of ink spreads through water, finding every available space. Some became large browsers, developing the teeth and the complex digestive systems needed to process tough plant material. Some became predators, filling the role that the carnivorous dinosaurs had vacated, developing the speed and the sharp dentition that hunting requires. Some went into the trees, finding in the canopy a world of food and shelter and relative safety from the dangers below. And some along lineages that would eventually lead, through tens of millions of years of slow evolutionary work, to the animal we now call the koala, began the process of specializing, of finding a particular niche and learning it with the focused attention of a craftsperson who has decided to become expert in one thing rather than competent in many. The Paleogene period that followed the extinction, the Pleistocene and Eocene epochs that stretched across the roughly 30 million years after the impact, was, in much of the world including Australia, a time of remarkable warmth and lushness. The climate that settled into place in the absence of the dust and darkness was in many regions subtropical to tropical, wet and green and generous. Australia, still drifting northward on its tectonic plate, was clothed in dense rainforest from coast to coast, or nearly so. Palms grew where eucalyptus would eventually grow. Ferns carpeted the understory. Rivers ran full and slow through landscapes so green that the very idea of the dry red heart that characterizes so much of modern Australia would have seemed impossible, a kind of geological fiction. In this warm and forested world, the marsupials diversified at a pace and in directions that make the Australian mammal fauna one of the most extraordinary experiments in evolutionary history. Every role that mammals can play in an ecosystem, every size, every diet, every behavior, was available and waiting. And the marsupials moved into those roles the way a family moves into a large empty house, filling room after room over time, discovering new spaces, adapting to the particular qualities of each. When you hold that story in your mind, the long Cretaceous darkness, the quiet that fell across the forests, the slow return of light and warmth, the patient diversification of small survivors into an empty world. And then you think forward through all those millions of years to a small grey animal sleeping 22 hours a day in a eucalyptus tree. The connection becomes something almost like a kind of wonder. The koala exists because of the asteroid. Not in any simple or direct way, of course. The lineage that leads to modern koalas is long and branching and involved countless other events and changes along the way. But the ecological space that the koala's ancestors eventually moved into, the particular niche that a eucalyptus specialist occupies in an Australian forest, existed because the world that preceded it was swept clean and rebuilt. Every mass extinction is, in the end, also a door, a closing and an opening, simultaneous, the way a single moment can contain both ending and beginning if you hold it long enough and look at it from the right angle. The door that closed 66 million years ago was enormous, and its closing was not gentle. But through the opening that was left behind, through the space and the silence and the slow greening of a recovering world, a lineage of small, warm-blooded, tree-dwelling creatures eventually walked. They were not koalas yet. They would not be koalas for tens of millions of years more. But the possibility of the koala was there, in the silence after the impact, in the first cautious movements of small marsupial bodies through a world suddenly made available to them. And now, on a quiet night in an Australian eucalyptus forest, when the air is still and cool and the stars are out, and a grey shape shifts slightly in the fork of a tree and tucks its nose more firmly into the soft fur of its own chest, and breathes slowly in and out, sleeping with the complete and trusting abandon of an animal that has found its place in the world. That long story is present in every sleeping breath. It has taken 66 million years to arrive at this moment of stillness, and the stillness is all the more beautiful for the journey that preceded it. Let that thought settle around you now, the way the quiet settles over the forest after the last bird has called and the last leaf has shifted, and let your own breathing slow to match the rhythm of that sleeping animal in its tree. Unhurried, at rest, held safely in the long patience of deep time. The air smells of warm eucalyptus resin, faintly sweet, faintly bitter, drifting up from leaves that have learned to hold their water close. You are resting somewhere in the open, beneath a gum tree whose pale bark catches the last of the evening light, and the land around you stretches away in long, unhurried sightlines. Scattered trees, low grasses moving in a soft inland wind, the sky enormous and quietly darkening overhead. It is the kind of landscape that feels ancient in your bones, even if you have never been here before. And that feeling is correct, because this open woodland, this particular arrangement of eucalyptus and space and light, is the product of one of the longest, most patient transformations the Earth has ever performed upon itself. What you are looking at took roughly 10 million years to arrive, and the koala arrived with it, step by step, unhurried, shaped by every degree of warmth that left and every drop of rain that stopped falling. There is something deeply restful in that thought. That change, real lasting change, does not need to be sudden. It only needs to be continuous. And the Miocene epoch, stretching from approximately 23 million years ago to around 5 million years ago, was the long, slow proof of that. 23 million years ago, Australia was a greener place than you might imagine. The continent had been drifting northward for tens of millions of years, pulling away from the ancient cold of Gondwana, moving into warmer latitudes, and for a time, that warmth was wet. Subtropical forests spread across much of the interior. Dense, layered canopies, ferns beneath, moisture in the air, rivers running full through a land that held its water easily. The ancestors of the modern koala moved through those forests, smaller and more generalist than the animal you picture now, climbing through a world that was lush and various and humid. Fossil evidence from the early Miocene suggests that koala relatives were part of a rich marsupial community, sharing their forests with creatures that would eventually become wombats, possums, kangaroos, and a whole catalogue of animals that no longer exist at all. Some of them browsers, some of them predators, some of them so strange and so particular to that wet world that when the world changed, they simply could not follow. But the world did change, and it changed in the direction of drying. The mechanisms were several, and they reinforced one another over millions of years. The Antarctic ice sheet, which had been forming since the late Eocene, continued to grow and to drive global temperatures downward, cooling the ocean currents that brought moisture to Australia's coasts. The continent's northward drift was carrying it into different atmospheric circulation patterns that favored dry air over wet. The interior of the continent, already far from any ocean, began to feel the full weight of that distance. The rain that fell on the coast could not reach it, and what had once been a moist interior slowly, over millions of years, became something else entirely. By the middle Miocene, roughly 15 million years ago, the subtropical forests that had covered so much of Australia's interior were retreating. They pulled back toward the coasts, toward the higher, wetter ground, toward the places where rain still arrived with some regularity. And in the space they left behind, something new was taking hold. Open woodland was advancing. Eucalyptus was advancing. The gum tree, with its leathery, oil-rich leaves and its deep roots and its extraordinary relationship with fire, was not merely surviving the drying. It was, in many ways, thriving on it. Eucalyptus had evolved a suite of adaptations that made it almost perfectly suited to a continent learning to be dry. Its leaves are covered in a thick waxy cuticle that slows water loss, and they hang vertically, edge on to the midday sun, reducing the surface area exposed to the most intense heat. The oils held within those leaves, the compounds that give eucalyptus its distinctive scent, that faint medicinal sharpness you can smell even now in the air around you, serve partly as a deterrent to herbivores, partly as a way of managing the leaf's own biochemistry in a water-stressed environment. And then there is the relationship with fire. Fire and eucalyptus, in the Miocene drying, entered into one of the most consequential partnerships in the history of any continent. The drying interior became increasingly prone to burning. Long dry seasons, lightning strikes, dead grass and leaf litter building up on the forest floor. And eucalyptus, rather than being simply destroyed by fire, had evolved to use it. The oils in eucalyptus leaves are highly flammable, which might seem like a disadvantage, but fire moves quickly through a eucalyptus forest precisely because of those oils, and that speed, that intensity and brevity, means that many eucalyptus trees survive where a slower, cooler fire might have smoldered and killed them. More importantly, eucalyptus holds its regenerative buds not just on its branch tips, but deep within the bark and in lignotubers. Woody swellings at the base of the trunk that store carbohydrates and dormant buds and are protected from all but the most catastrophic fires. After a burn, a eucalyptus can resprout from its lignotuber within weeks, throwing up new green growth into an ash-cleared landscape while its competitors are still trying to germinate from seed. Over millions of years of repeated burning and resprouting, the eucalyptus-dominated woodland outcompeted other forest types in the drying interior. And as it did, it reshaped the landscape around its own particular logic. Open canopy, long sightlines, fire-adapted understory, and those distinctive blue-grey leaves hanging in their vertical planes, catching the light in a way that is unlike any other forest on Earth. And through all of this, the ancestors of the koala were adapting alongside the tree. This is one of the most intimate evolutionary relationships in the mammalian world. A single lineage of marsupials becoming so closely tied to a single genus of tree that their fates, over millions of years, became almost inseparable. Early koala relatives in the Miocene were not yet the specialists that the modern koala is. They ate a broader range of leaves, moved through a more varied landscape, had not yet committed fully to the eucalyptus diet that would eventually define their descendants so completely. But as the forest dried and simplified, as eucalyptus came to dominate more and more of the available woodland, the evolutionary pressure shifted. The animals that could most efficiently extract nutrition from eucalyptus leaves, that could tolerate the oils, that could detoxify the compounds, that could find enough calories in food that most other mammals cannot even digest. Those animals were better placed to survive. And so, across millions of years of Miocene drying, the koala lineage moved, generation by generation, toward greater and greater specialization. The digestive system lengthened. The liver became more efficient at breaking down the toxic phenolic compounds in eucalyptus leaves. The caecum, the fermentation chamber in the koala's gut, grew longer than that of almost any other mammal relative to body size, a slow fermenting vat where bacteria help extract the last available energy from those difficult leaves. The brain, relative to body size, became smaller over evolutionary time, which sounds alarming until you understand that a smaller brain uses less energy, and in an animal subsisting on some of the least nutritious food available to any mammal, Every calorie saved is a calorie that can go towards survival and reproduction. The koala's extraordinary stillness, those 20 to 22 hours of rest per day that define its modern existence, is not laziness. It is the most elegant possible solution to an energy budget so tight that any unnecessary movement is a luxury the animal cannot afford. That stillness was being selected for in the Miocene. As the diet narrowed and the woodland opened around the animal's ancestors, the opened woodland also changed the dynamics of predation and movement in ways that shaped koala behavior over millions of years. In a denser, wetter forest, distances between trees are short, canopy cover is continuous, and an animal can move between trees without ever fully descending to the ground. In open eucalyptus woodland, trees are spaced further apart, and a koala must sometimes cross open ground to move from one tree to another. This vulnerability, those moments of exposure, shape the koala's characteristic way of moving, its preference for certain trees within a home range, its tendency to remain still and close to the trunk of a familiar tree through the heat of the day. The open woodland was not a hostile environment, but it was a more exposed one, and the animals that moved through it carefully, that learned which trees were richest, that minimized unnecessary travel, were the ones that survived long enough to pass those tendencies on. Meanwhile, the broader marsupial community was also being reshaped by the Miocene drying. Some of the ancient families that had thrived in the wetter forests dwindled as their habitat retreated. Others diversified explosively into the new open landscapes. The ancestors of the kangaroos and wallabies, in particular, were finding that open grassland and open woodland were environments where their particular style of locomotion, their efficient hopping gait, and their ability to cover long distances without excessive energy expenditure was a profound advantage. The Miocene was, in many ways, the epoch in which the characteristic Australian fauna we would recognize began to take its modern shape. Not fully, not yet, but in outline, in the broad strokes of what the continent and its animals were becoming. And running through all of it, like a thread of continuity, is the drying. 10 million years of drying, 10 million years of rainfall patterns shifting, of rivers running lower, of inland lakes slowly becoming salt pans, and then dry lake beds, and then desert. 10 million years of the open woodland advancing, the gum trees spreading, the fire cycles turning over and over through the interior. And in that vast, unhurried span of time, the koala's ancestors became slowly and certainly more like the animal sleeping in the tree above you now. You rest beneath that gum tree, and the evening has deepened around you, and the pale bark glows faintly in the last of the light. 10 million years is a span of time that the mind cannot really hold. It is too large, too patient, too gradual for any single human life to encompass. But the koala holds it in a way, in the length of its caecum, and the composition of its liver enzymes, and the particular way it presses itself against the trunk of a eucalyptus in the heat of the afternoon. The koala carries the record of all that drying, all that slow continental transformation. Every adaptation is a memory of a world that was gradually becoming something else. And the continent became what it is, and the koala became what it is, and now the two of them rest together in the open woodland, the tree and the animal, each shaped by the other, each a kind of answer to the question that the Miocene kept asking, slowly and patiently, over 10 million years of quiet change. Let that patience settle over you now, warm and unhurried, like the last light fading from pale bark. There is no rush, there never was. Close your eyes for a moment and feel the ground beneath you. Not the ground as it is tonight, but as it was 40,000 years ago, when Australia was a different kind of place, vast and strange and trembling with the slow weight of creatures that no longer walk the earth. The air smells of dry grass and eucalyptus resin, and somewhere out across the plain a sound moves through the dusk, a low, rumbling exhalation, like the earth itself breathing. What you are hearing, if you could travel back through all those layers of time and stand very still at the edge of that ancient woodland, is a Diprotodon optatum, the largest marsupial that has ever lived on this planet. It is the size of a rhinoceros. It carries its young in a pouch. It is grazing the open floodplain with the calm, unhurried confidence of something that has never had much reason to hurry. And as it moves, the ground remembers it. The Diprotodon belongs to a group called the Diprotodontids, large plant-eating marsupials that had been part of the Australian story for millions of years before the Pleistocene, growing slowly larger as the continent's grasslands expanded. By the time of the Ice Ages, it had become something almost architectural, a living structure of bone and muscle and slow digestion, wandering between water sources, cropping low shrubs and grasses, its teeth built for grinding the tough, dry vegetation that the drying continent produced. Herds of them may have moved across what are now the lake beds of inland Australia, following the rains, reading the land with senses we can only guess at. Fossils of Diprotodon have been found across the entire continent, from Queensland to South Australia, from the coasts to the deep interior, which tells you something about how thoroughly it belonged here, how fully it had made itself at home in this place. And yet, it is gone now. And the koala, smaller, quieter, tucked into the fork of a eucalyptus far above the reach of most of what threatened it, is still here. That is a thought worth sitting with slowly, like something warm in your hands. The Pleistocene in Australia was not the Pleistocene of popular imagination, not the world of glaciers grinding down from mountain ranges, of ice sheets covering entire continents. Australia sat far enough north to avoid that particular drama. But the Ice Ages still came here in their own way, and the way they came was through water, or rather, through its absence, and then its sudden abundance, and then its absence again, cycling back and forth across hundreds of thousands of years in slow, enormous breaths. During glacial periods, when so much of the world's water was locked up in ice at the poles, the sea levels dropped and the air grew drier, and Australia's interior became more arid than it is even today. The Great Lakes of the interior, Lake Eyre, Lake Frome, the Willandra Lake system, filled and emptied and filled again in rhythm with those planetary cycles, and the forests and grasslands shifted in response, pulling back toward the coast when the rains failed, pushing back into the interior when the rains returned. The eucalyptus forest breathed in and out with the rainfall, expanding and contracting across the land like something alive, which of course they were. And through all of that expanding and contracting, the koalas moved with the trees. Their entire world, after all, was the forest canopy, and wherever the canopy went, the koalas followed, sleeping their deep restorative sleep in the branches, letting the chemistry of eucalyptus leaves sustain them through climates that drove other creatures to exhaustion or extinction. Now, let your mind settle on the woodland at dusk in that Pleistocene world, and consider what else lived there alongside the grazing giants of the plain. Thylacoleo carnifex, whose name means roughly the marsupial lion, the flesh carver, is not an animal most people have heard of, but it was one of the most specialized predators that Australia ever produced. It was roughly the size of a leopard, perhaps a little larger, with a body built for explosive, precise violence. Enormous shearing teeth derived from the same premolars that, in its herbivorous relatives, were used for slicing plant material, but repurposed over millions of years of evolution into blades capable of dispatching large prey with terrifying efficiency. Its forelimbs were powerful, and fossil evidence suggests it may have been a capable climber, moving through the eucalyptus canopy or ambushing prey from above, which puts it, in the quiet, unhurried way of evolutionary coincidence, in the same trees where koala ancestors slept. Whether Thylacoleo ever regarded a sleeping koala as prey is something the fossil record does not tell us directly, though the structural overlap of their worlds is a strange and vivid thing to contemplate. The marsupial lion appears in the fossil record at sites across Australia, and some researchers have suggested from trackway evidence and claw marks preserved on cave walls that it was a capable ambush predator, patient and precise in its hunting, built for the moment of contact rather than the long chase. It is not a creature that invites fear exactly, not from this distance, not from the warm remove of tens of thousands of years, but it does invite a kind of quiet awe, the recognition that the eucalyptus woodland was once part of an ecosystem far more layered and complex and dynamically dangerous than the one we know today. On the woodland floor below the canopy, patrolling the leaf litter and the sun-dappled open ground between the trees, moved something even more arresting. Megalania, whose full scientific name is Varanus priscus, though many researchers still use the older name informally, was a giant monitor lizard, a goanna in the same lineage as the Komodo dragon and the lace monitors that still flick their tongues through Australian bush today. Estimates of its size have shifted over the years as new fossils and new methods of analysis have refined the picture. But the range most often cited is somewhere between 4 and 7 meters in length, with the uncertainty reflecting genuine disagreement about how to scale up from fragmentary fossil material. Even at the conservative end of that range, Megalania was a formidable presence, a cold-blooded ambush predator moving through the undergrowth with the slow, fluid patience of something that does not need to rush, because the world will eventually bring food within range. It likely used venom, as modern monitor lizards do, and its bite would have been sufficient to bring down prey far larger than itself, if given enough time to work. And here is the part that quietly rearranges something in your understanding of the koala. While Megalania moved through the woodland floor, the ancestors of modern koalas were sleeping in the canopy above it. The canopy was, in a very practical sense, the koala's refuge, not just from the climate, not just from the metabolic demands of a low-nutrient diet, but from the physical reality of a world that contained Megalania on the ground and perhaps Thylacoleo in the mid-canopy. The koala's entire body plan, its grip, its balance, its ability to wedge itself into a fork and remain almost perfectly still for 18 hours, is at least partly legible as an animal that evolved under real predation pressure. And the Pleistocene gives you a vivid sense of what that pressure looked like. You do not need to feel anything urgent about this. It is simply the texture of deep time, the way every living creature is a palimpsest of the pressures that shaped it, carrying in its body the memory of worlds it no longer has to navigate. The rainfall cycles of the Pleistocene reshaped not just the distribution of forests, but the hydrology of the entire continent. When the rains came in force during interglacial periods, the rivers that feed the Willandra Lake system in what is now western New South Wales ran full, and those lakes, Mungo, Leahy, Garnpung, became genuine bodies of water surrounded by woodland and grassland, teeming with fish and water birds and the large mammals that came to drink. Think for a moment about what those lakesides would have looked like at dusk. The reed bed fringes golden in the failing light, the flat water holding the colors of the sky, and somewhere in the woodland behind the shore, a koala settling into the cleft of a red gum, adjusting its grip, tucking its chin toward its chest, beginning the long, slow descent into sleep. It is an image that requires no drama to be beautiful. It is simply a creature in its place, in its time, doing the thing it has always done. The Great Plains stretching away from those lakes would have been grazed by Diprotodon in loose, unhurried groups, each animal moving with the particular heaviness of something that weighs 2 or 3 tons, their breath clouding faintly in the cooler evening air, their eyes reflecting the last of the light. They were not frightening animals, the Diprotodons. They were, in their way, peaceful, enormous and slow, and entirely absorbed in the work of finding enough to eat, which for an animal of that size was essentially a full-time occupation. The overlap between the first Australians and the last of the Pleistocene megafauna is one of the most debated questions in paleontology, and the answer, most researchers now believe, is complex. A combination of changing climate and other pressures, none of them alone sufficient to explain the extinctions, several together perhaps more than sufficient. What we can say with confidence is that by roughly 46,000 years ago, most of the large Australian megafauna were gone. Diprotodon vanished, Thylacoleo vanished, Megalania vanished, the giant short-faced kangaroos vanished. An entire ecological guild of large animals, some of them present in Australia for millions of years, disappeared within what is, in geological terms, a very short window of time. And the koala did not vanish. The koala pulled through. It was not without its difficulties. Populations contracted and expanded with the forests, and there were certainly periods of severe stress. But the lineage held. The animal that sits in the eucalyptus tonight, its grey fur soft against the bark, its round ears turning slowly towards some sound in the middle distance, is a direct descendant of the koala ancestors that slept in the canopy while Megalania moved through the leaf litter below, and Diprotodon grazed the distant plain. That is one of the longer continuities in the recent history of Australian life, a lineage that has persisted not through size or ferocity or ecological dominance, but through specialization so complete, and a relationship with a single tree genus so deeply committed that the koala became in some sense untouchable by the changes that erased its contemporaries. The eucalyptus trees survived the Pleistocene. The koalas survived with them. You carry something of that endurance with you too. Not in any dramatic sense, but in the simple fact of being here, breathing slowly, letting the weight of the day dissolve. Every living thing around you tonight is a survivor of something, a thread that held when others broke, and the koala is simply one of the most eloquent examples, a creature whose entire existence is a quiet argument for the value of stillness, patience, and finding one good place and staying in it. And somewhere in the slow, even rhythm of the koala's breathing tonight, that long, unhurried exhalation that you can almost feel if you sit quietly enough with the idea of it. There is something of all those ancient worlds still moving, still present, still finding rest in the canopy as the night settles soft and deep around the trees. Settle into the quiet for a moment and imagine the weight of a koala pressed gently against the smooth grey bark of a eucalyptus, its round head tucked low, its breathing so slow and even that the whole animal seems to have become part of the tree itself. A soft grey growth, patient and still, as though it has been resting in this same posture since the Miocene. There is something in that stillness that reaches across the distance between a marsupial in a gum tree and a person lying in the dark, breathing slowly, letting the day dissolve. Both of you, right now, are doing something ancient and necessary. But the koala has taken that necessity and refined it over millions of years into something close to an art form. A total, whole-body commitment to rest that shapes every organ, every cell, every quiet heartbeat. Tonight you can rest inside that same logic, that same ancient permission to slow all the way down. The body knows how. The koala has always known. Somewhere deep in the branching history of warm-blooded life, the instruction was written. When the world offers you very little, spend very little in return. The koala read that instruction and followed it with extraordinary precision. Its brain, to begin with, is a remarkable and quietly astonishing thing, not because of its complexity in the usual sense, but because of its simplicity, its smallness, the deliberate economy it represents. A koala's brain is smooth, largely lacking the deep folds and convolutions that mark the brains of many other mammals. It sits inside the skull with a noticeable gap of fluid surrounding it, as though it has, over evolutionary time, quietly contracted, pulled inward, reduced itself to the minimum required for the life being lived. Scientists believe this is precisely what happened. Over millions of years of eating eucalyptus, leaves that are extraordinarily low in calories, that demand enormous digestive effort to yield any usable energy at all. The koala lineage faced a relentless pressure to cut costs wherever possible. The brain is one of the most expensive organs a body can maintain. It burns energy continuously, demanding glucose even during sleep, even during rest, never fully switching off. And so, slowly, across deep time, the koala brain appears to have downsized, not lost its function. Koalas navigate their trees with precision, locate food with extraordinary accuracy, raise their young, communicate through a repertoire of sounds that can carry for hundreds of meters through dense forest. But trimmed to essentials, running lean, spending only what was absolutely necessary to spend. You carry your own brain with you through every day, that dense and costly architecture humming away behind your eyes. And on a night like this, it too is beginning to slow, to release the excess, to let the unnecessary go quiet. There is something almost comforting in the koala's solution. The idea that intelligence does not always mean more, that sometimes the deepest adaptation is the courage to simplify, to keep only what truly matters and let the rest fall gently away. Below that smooth and economical brain, the koala's gut is doing something equally extraordinary. Eucalyptus leaves are not merely low in calories. They are actively toxic. They contain powerful phenolic compounds, terpenes and oils. The same oils that give eucalyptus its sharp, clean scent, that humans have used in medicines and chest rubs and cleaning solutions. To most mammals, a steady diet of eucalyptus leaves would be poisonous. The liver would struggle, the kidneys would fail, the body would signal distress in every possible language. And yet, the koala eats almost nothing else, day after day, season after season, across a lifetime that can span a dozen years or more. The secret lies in the gut, in the long and specialized digestive tract that a koala carries, and most particularly in the cecum, a pouch that branches off the junction of the small and large intestine, and in the koala reaches extraordinary lengths, sometimes 2 meters long, a slow-moving chamber packed with microbial life. Inside that cecum lives a community of bacteria and other microorganisms unlike almost anything found in other mammals. A specialized microbiome shaped over millions of years specifically for the task of breaking down eucalyptus toxins. neutralizing the compounds that would harm a different animal, unlocking the meager nutrients hidden inside those tough and waxy leaves. And this microbiome is not simply inherited. It cannot be passed through genetics alone. A young koala, a joey, spends its early months inside its mother's pouch, drinking milk, developing slowly in the dark and warmth. But as it begins to transition towards solid food, there comes a period, brief, precise, essential, when the mother produces a specialized substance called pap, a soft, partially digested material that passes from her digestive system and is consumed by the joey with great enthusiasm. Pap is not simply food. It is a transfer, a seeding, a gift of microbiome. The mother passing to her young the specific community of gut bacteria that will make eucalyptus eating possible. Without that transfer, the joey could not survive on the leaves. With it, the whole extraordinary system becomes self-perpetuating, passed from body to body, generation to generation, a living inheritance older than any individual koala, older than any individual eucalyptus grove, woven through time in a chain of quiet, patient meals shared between mothers and young, in the forks of trees above the slowly changing Australian landscape. Rest in that image for a moment. The mother and the joey, the passing of something essential and invisible. The body teaching the body what it needs to know. Every creature that has ever lived has received something from those who came before. Some inherited wisdom encoded not in words, but in flesh, in chemistry, in the slow language of cells. Before the gut can even begin its long work of detoxification, the koala must first decide which leaves to eat. And here, the animal's sense of smell steps forward as something quite remarkable. Koalas are not indiscriminate. They do not simply reach for the nearest cluster of eucalyptus leaves and begin eating. They are selective in a way that reflects millions of years of refinement, lifting their broad, leathery noses toward the canopy, reading a chemical language written in scent that humans can barely begin to perceive. There are hundreds of species of eucalyptus across Australia, and their toxicity varies enormously between species, between individual trees, between seasons, between the leaves at the top of a canopy and those lower down. A koala navigating a patch of woodland is not simply finding food. It is conducting a continuous careful assessment, comparing scent profiles, judging toxin loads, selecting the leaves that offer the best ratio of calories to cost, the least demanding path through a diet that is demanding in every possible direction. That refined sense of smell, the broad nose, the large olfactory apparatus, the brain regions devoted to processing scent, represents an enormous investment for an animal that is otherwise trimming every cost it can. But it is worth every calorie spent. The wrong leaf choice, repeated across days, could tip the body's detoxification systems into overload. The right choices, accumulated across years of careful sniffing and selecting, make a life possible on a diet that no other large mammal has managed to crack. You might think of your own quiet moments of careful choice, the small, unhurried decisions made when you are not rushing, when you are paying attention, when the body's own signals are audible beneath the noise of the day. The koala's nose is always listening to those signals, always reading the slow and complex text of the world through scent. And then, having eaten, carefully, selectively, having processed leaves through meters of specialized gut, having spent the microbiome's hard-won chemistry on the long work of detoxification, the koala sleeps. Not briefly, not as a small concession to tiredness. The koala sleeps somewhere between 18 and 22 hours in every 24. And this is not laziness, not indolence, not the absence of something. It is a precise and beautifully calibrated biological strategy. Sleep, for the koala, is the mechanism by which everything else becomes possible. With so few calories entering the system and so much energy being spent on digestion and detoxification, there is almost nothing left for movement, for social complexity, for the wide-ranging behavior of more generalist animals. The koala's solution is radical and elegant. Spend almost all available time in a state of minimal energy expenditure. Let the heart slow. Let the breath deepen and lengthen. Let the muscles go soft against the bark. Let the metabolic fires burn as low as they possibly can, while still maintaining warmth, still keeping the essential processes turning over, still allowing the gut to do its long, quiet, patient work. Sleep is not absence in this understanding. Sleep is the active choice, the core strategy, the thing around which everything else is organized. You are not losing time when you sleep. You are doing the most important thing your body knows how to do. The koala understood this long before any word for sleep existed, long before any story was told about rest or its value. It understood through the slow accumulation of generations, through the bodies of ancestors that rested more and survived better, through the deep logic of a world in which energy is never free and every expenditure must be justified. And perhaps this is the most quietly wonderful thing about the koala, the way its whole existence is a meditation on a question that sits at the heart of any life. What is truly necessary, and what can be gently, peacefully let go? It has answered that question over millions of years, and the answer looks like a round, grey animal pressed against a tree, breathing slowly in the filtered afternoon light, eyes closed, utterly at peace with doing exactly this and nothing more. The koala has, in a sense, solved life on a toxic and ungenerous diet by becoming as much like a tree as an animal can become. Rooted in one place, patient across time, drawing sustenance from a narrow and demanding source, and making it enough by spending almost nothing beyond what is necessary. Trees do not rush. Trees do not compete in the ways that rushing animals compete. Trees grow slowly over years and decades, putting out leaves and dropping them, flowering when the season allows, standing through drought and storm and the slow grind of geological time, with a kind of endurance that has nothing to do with urgency and everything to do with deep, unhurried persistence. The koala has found its way to something very like that posture. Animal patience, marsupial stillness, a life measured not in miles covered or distances crossed, but in the quality of each long rest, each careful meal, each quiet breath drawn in the high branches of a tree that has been growing since before the koala's great-grandparents were born. You can borrow some of that stillness now. As the night deepens around you, let the breath slow. Let the body settle into the surface beneath it, heavy and warm and entirely at rest. The koala does not wonder whether it is resting correctly, whether it has rested enough, whether there is something else it should be doing instead. It simply rests, with the whole authority of its long evolutionary history behind it, with the full permission of its biology, with the quiet confidence of an animal that has learned over millions of years that this, exactly this, is precisely enough. The silver-grey gum stands where it has always stood, or somewhere very close to where it has always stood, its bark cool and faintly luminous in the darkness, its leaves hanging still in air that smells of resin and dew and the slow exhalations of old wood. High in the fork, where two branches diverge, the koala is a small warm shape against the pale trunk. Eyes closed, breath so gentle it barely stirs the fur along its rounded back. Above the canopy, stars have wheeled into their late positions. The same stars that looked down on Gondwana when it was still one continent. The same stars that watched the first marsupials carry their young through forests that no human eye has ever seen. Nothing here is urgent. Nothing here is sharp. The world at this hour belongs entirely to slowness, and the koala, as it has always done, understands this better than almost any creature alive. We have traveled a long way together tonight, you and I, and now we are back where we began, in the eucalyptus forest, in the dark, with this one small animal sleeping above us. And it is time to let the journey settle into something quiet and restful before we too dissolve into the night. Think back, if you like, to where we started, to Gondwana, that vast southern supercontinent, assembled from pieces that had once themselves been part of something even older, the continental masses drifting on the slow convection of the mantle, moving at roughly the speed a human fingernail grows, which is to say moving imperceptibly in any single lifetime, but profoundly across millions of years. Around 170 million years ago, the forces beneath the crust began their patient work of separation, and Gondwana started to come apart, rifting along lines of ancient weakness, the ocean flooding in between, the land masses carrying their passengers, their insects, their plants, their early mammals, toward the arrangements we now call the southern continents. Australia drifted northward into warmer latitudes, carrying with it the ancestors of every marsupial that would ever bounce or climb or glide across its surface. The marsupials themselves were already ancient by then, their lineage diverging from the placental mammals somewhere in that deep corridor of Mesozoic time. Their great experiment, the pouch, the brief birth, the long nursing, proving itself generation after generation in conditions that would have defeated many another body plan. And from within that marsupial radiation, one lineage turned toward the trees, toward the leaves, toward the eucalyptus that was even then beginning its slow diversification across the Australian landscape. The koala's ancestors made a bargain with those trees that has held now for millions of years. We will eat what no one else can stomach. We will detoxify the phenols and the terpenes. We will slow our metabolism to match the poor nutrition of the leaves, and in return, we will have a food source almost entirely our own, a vast, uncontested larder stretching across an entire continent. To honor that bargain, the koala's liver grew elaborate, its gut grew long and specialized, its brain settled into the curves of its skull with room to spare, and its whole manner of moving through the world became a study in beautiful, unhurried economy. Every calorie is precious when your food is mostly water and cellulose and chemical defenses. So the koala rests for up to 22 hours in every 24, spending those hours not in blankness, but in a deep and genuine sleep. The body cycling through its slow repairs, the mind moving through whatever territory a koala's dreaming opens onto. We do not know what a koala dreams, but we know it dreams, and that is enough to make the watching tender. We walked then through deep time, through the Cretaceous, when Australia still wore polar darkness for months of every year, and the animals that lived there, the early mammals, the dinosaurs of those cold southern forests, endured winters that should have been impossible. The end of the Cretaceous came 66 million years ago, with the impact and the long, dark, and the mass extinction that closed one chapter of life on Earth and opened another. Australia's mammals survived, sheltered perhaps by their isolation, and in the warmer, wetter Paleocene and Eocene that followed, they diversified into forms that filled every available role. The Miocene brought drying, the slow retreat of the rainforest, the advance of the open woodland, and the eucalyptus came into its own across the new, drier landscape. A tree perfectly suited to thin soils and irregular fire and long droughts. A tree that could burn to the root and regrow, that stored its water carefully and offered its leaves year-round. The koala followed that tree wherever it went, and so the two of them, the gum and the grey climber that is not a bear, mapped themselves across a continent together, their fates braided through the Miocene and Pliocene and Pleistocene, through the ice ages that brought their megafauna of giant wombats and diprotodons and marsupial lions, through everything that deep time could arrange. And here we are. Here is the koala in the silver grey gum. Here is the forest at the edge of sleep. Now consider this, and let it settle into you gently, the way the warmth of a blanket settles into tired limbs. The atoms in the koala's fur, the carbon, the hydrogen, the oxygen, the nitrogen arranged into protein, and the oils that keep the fur soft. Those atoms have histories so long and so various that the mind cannot fully hold them, but it can touch them lightly and feel something like wonder. The carbon in that fur was once carbon dioxide in ancient air, breathed in by eucalyptus leaves and fixed into sugar by the patient work of photosynthesis, eaten and incorporated, cycled and recycled through dozens of organisms across millions of years. Before that, it was the carbon in the oceans of the Cretaceous, dissolved from rock by rain across geological time. Before that, it was forged in the cores of stars that lived and died before our solar system existed, scattered into space in stellar winds and great stellar explosions, gathered again by gravity into the nebula that collapsed to form our sun and its planets. The iron in the koala's blood has the same deep history, the calcium in its bones, the oxygen in each slow breath it takes right now, as it sleeps above us in the pale-barked gum. Everything that makes this animal is ancient beyond imagining, and all of it is resting. All of it is still. All of it is gathered into one small, warm, sleeping creature in a tree. At this hour, in this forest, under these stars, that thought does not have to be overwhelming. Let it be the opposite. Let it be the most restful thing you have heard today. Because if the atoms in the koala's fur have been through stars and seas and ancient forests and uncountable lives across 4 billion years, and if they are now, at this moment, arranged into something that sleeps 22 hours out of every 24, at peace, unhurried, held by the tree it trusts completely, then perhaps the journey through deep time leads, at least sometimes, toward stillness. Perhaps rest is not an interruption of the story. Perhaps rest is what the story has been moving toward all along. You have traveled through deep time tonight. You have stood at the edge of Gondwana and watched a continent break apart. You have followed the marsupials through their long inheritance. You have sat with the eucalyptus through droughts and fires and ice ages. You have watched the giants of the Pleistocene pass into memory and felt the forest close quietly around the small grey shape that remained. And now you are here, at the end of the journey, in the dark, with the koala sleeping above you, its breath slow and even, its body trusting the branch the way you might trust the surface that holds you as you drift toward sleep. Let the forest hold you the way it holds the gum trees, steadily, without effort, without asking anything in return. Let the deep time we have moved through tonight become a kind of ground beneath you, something vast and patient and indifferent to hurry, something that has room for all of it, the extinctions and the recoveries, the dryings and the greening, the giants and the small grey survivors, and room for you too, resting now, your own breath slowing to match the rhythm of the forest. The silver grey gum does not know what hour it is. The koala does not know. The stars overhead are the same stars that watch Gondwana, and they do not know either, and none of them need to. The forest is quiet, the night is long. Somewhere in the high branches, a sleeping animal breathes in and breathes out, and the leaves do not move, and the bark is cool and faintly luminous, and the deep time that made all of this is still at work, patient and unhurried and kind, carrying everything forward at the speed of a growing fingernail, at the speed of a drifting continent, at the speed of a breath taken in sleep. Rest now. The gum trees are standing watch. The koala is already dreaming, and the night has many hours yet to give.